when you put together voices in an animated film, it's a lot like an orchestra. It's like there are different instruments that have to either combine in a harmonious way or they have to clash against each other. And so you try to find those voices that are distinctive, but actors that are natural.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
I'm a box troll. Eggs, the box troll.
Isaac just brought an incredible amount of warmth and charm with his voice.
I really enjoyed the voice process because you waltz into the studio and you just do the lines as many times as you need to and then move on and then you're done within 3 hours. The puppets will act for me. We have to leave the cavern. We're not safe down here anymore, come on. I said we have to leave now. I quite like doing some of the comedic stuff with Eggs, doing some, funny stuff. When he's saying, well, you don't fit in your box. I can't right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm long-boned.
And you don't talk like them.
I have a speech impediment.
Your ears aren't pointy.
I slept on them funny. I always remember at the end of each session we'd tend to do the screaming ones where there would be some kind of horrible emotional trauma for Eggs.
Ah!
When you see Eggs running, they'll be or jumping off something, they'll be a You kind of have to go and throw yourself around a bit, which is always a good laugh. We left it to last because otherwise we'd go, I'm Eggs the box troll. Wouldn't be able to speak.
What's he saying? When you first see her, she's definitely, you think she's a little sort of stuck up and sort of spoiled. She always gets her way. She's sort of calling out for help in a way because her father doesn't really pay attention to her because he's always busy with his cheese business.
Winifred, you're 11 years old. You're perfectly capable of telling yourself a story.
People don't tell themselves stories unless they have two heads. Do I have two heads?
Yes, Winifred. Now off to bed with you.
I've never really shown my sort of sassy side. I knew it! I knew it! I knew it! Father didn't believe me, but I knew it! You were out there. How did you escape? She is bossy, and I think that you learn to love her bossiness. Did they drag you down to their hideous caves? Oh, were there mountains of baby bones and rivers of blood? Did they eat your family? Or did they eat the eyeballs first, or save them for dessert? Tell me everything! With your voice, you can kind of get out of the box.
She's just a great mix of privilege and spunk.
What are you doing? Unhand me!
Looks like the box trolls have a new victim, miss. And her name is you.
My voice, my characterization, came out of a man who eats so badly and so selfishly and gorges himself. I like to work almost lying down because I wanted his voice to come from his belly, not from where my voice normally comes from. I thought that was quite visceral. Big gut.
Ladies and gents, children of all ages, Madame Frou-Frou.
Hello! Madame Frou-Frou is Snatcher's alter ego.
Yeah, it's bizarre. He kind of moonlights as this saucy French burlesque singer.
Thank you, my darlings.
This is career suicide, I hope you realise. You're all party to it. Yes, it's an interesting aspect of his character that he cross-dresses.
You are too much. Or maybe just enough. Ah!
The switching of the voice is a clue to how cunning he is and how good he is at being bad.
A great man and his colleagues,
best chums,
stooges.
Pickles and Trout, they're the not too bright and not too evil henchmen of the villain.
Here come the exterminators!
Richard Ayoade plays Mr. Pickles.
You ever seen someone's foot be evil, Mr. Trout? My foot had a pretty nasty bunion once. I wouldn't say the foot itself was evil.
He is a quite innocent character. He's a villain in it, but doesn't realise he's a villain.
We are the good guys. I'm still 60 to 70% certain that's us.
And Richard Ayoade has this this really distinctive, beautifully nasal voice.
It's surprising that a nasal voice like mine can ever be of service.
All right, you squirmy monster. Days of evil doing are over.
Really, it's the director's ability to extract some form of useful vocal sounds. So, as far as I was concerned, I was hopefully putting myself in their hands and trying to, in some way, not heap disgrace upon their project.
You ever wonder what they're thinking about, Mr. Trout?
I imagine they're evaluating their life choices.
Mr. Trout is kind of a big, thuggish brute with the soul of a poet.
I'm a violent lunatic who loves French poetry and bludgeoning.
You really think these box trolls understand the duality of good and evil?
But he has a heart, you know. He's a deep thinker, despite the fact that he's an idiot, you know.
This really does stretch the limits of the term hero, doesn't it?
He knows there's something bigger out there, I think, and enjoys pondering those things while snatching box trolls off the street.
Acquire! Acquire!
Mr. Gristle is the most vile, evil little thing.
He's like the Terminator robot. If a Terminator robot was a tiny little Victorian thug.
Who doesn't see well.
Who doesn't see well, yeah, who wears glasses and has bad teeth.
Foot.
He hates those box trolls, and he's a evil dude. Evil. Nice. 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 Take that, empty box.
My favorite thing about Gristle is how he's his own little Greek chorus. You know, he'll do something, and as he's doing it, he'll describe it.
Chanting, chanting.
I'm going to hit you, and I'm running fast.
I'm flying on a cage.
I'm swinging on a chain. He's fantastic that way.
He's a crazy person, so it was fun to fly over the cuckoo's nest. Oh my God, I regret so much.
Lord Portly Rind. He's the mayor of Cheesebridge, and he's the biggest snob in a town full of snobs. He's focused on the things that he likes, which is mostly cheese and wine.
I'm telling you, Stilton! Stilton! Imported cheeses have the most complex flavor. Raw. Dangerous. Maybe a little stinky.
It's very much a vocal performance. It's, you know, which is fun because you're allowed to overact.
How nice. I play Lady Portly Rind. I adore names from the Bible.
Lady Portly Rind is, yes, the wife of Lord Portly Rind and one of the fashionable ladies of Cheesebridge.
When you come in to do the voice, there's kind of a little bit of pressure because you don't want to screw it up when these guys are putting so much effort in and day out for so long.
Ooh, I think I feel another one of my turns coming on. Oh, ow.
I love putting in my, tiny little effort, and then, a few years later, there's going to be this whole kind of majestic tale that I'll be able to go and see.
In creating the languages of the box trolls, we started out with just making guttural animal sounds. Yeah! And then we went the other way and tried to make it more like a language with words. And finally ended up with something kind of in the middle that was freer and more improvisational, with just an occasional word peppered in, maybe. Silence! Silence! I am about to create something with my mind! And scene.
We played to the intent and the emotion of what was described to us, and we didn't really have visuals, but we definitely had some very clear, concise description of what we were trying to communicate.
We told the story with our voices.
Herbert's a very fun character to play anyway, because he's bats.
Jelly! When I'm good, I get jelly. I like jelly. Jelly!
I get to just be nuts the whole time.
Ah, yes. I see it now. A mutation of nature. Self-imposed metamorphosis. Box Boy, you did it! You made you!
It's almost like you walk in as a blank canvas and allow yourself to be painted on.
Jelly.
The cast for the Box Trolls ended up being this incredibly unpredictable, bizarre chemistry of actors who created such a potent mix. The performances were just outstanding in it.
Just an extraordinary group of actors in our film, all bringing dimension and authenticity and vulnerability and menace, just the entire range of emotion that you would expect and want out of these characters to make them feel like real living people, that they're not just little dolls, they are people with aspirations and hopes and dreams. And the cast of actors that we got for this film really just did an exceptional job of bringing these guys to life in the perfect way.
Look at all these boxes left lying about. How curious, how peculiar.
With the Box Trolls, I mean, it became such a big part of their character. Well, it's part of the appeal of what they were. It's just timid creatures.
How do you show that they're timid? They hide in their boxes if anybody sees them.
Our puppet department thought it was going to be a pretty simple thing to handle.
Both Georgina and I looked at the Box Trolls and thought, this is great. These are simple puppets. They basically have a cardboard box and limbs sticking out of it.
Just make a box.
We thought, boxes, this is great. We've got all that space.
And boy, were we wrong. They're so complex.
It was a challenge to get all those limbs and those heads and everything to physically, truly fit into the box.
They have to be able to completely retract into their boxes.
Let's see you fit in your box.
I can't right now.
Mm-hmm.
We decided that we would put as much into the boxes, the initial boxes, as we could, get as much movement out of one puppet, and we literally sort of went about trying to retract them as much as possible. If you look underneath, it's quite amazing how much we managed to cram into one little box. Once we got to a point of we can't fit anything else into this box with armatures and physical, apparatus, then we knew that with replacement animation we could cheat the last bits. So Rapid Prototype and Brian's department got involved with making replacement head parts.
Replacement animation, by design, means that you have to literally remove a face to put on another one. So if you imagine these faces constantly hidden, we had to figure out how you're going to get access to it and how we were not only going to be able to have the animators need to replace faces, but how were we going to be able to take Fish, who's got this really long head, how were we going to drop that into his box? So we had a very elaborate system of half heads that audience member will never see, but as the head is dropping into a box, it actually goes from being a full head into this little tiny half head. But all that was complicated by the fact that these Box Trolls needed to have sort of glowing eyes in certain scenes in the film. So that was its own problem to solve. We also had to figure out a way to now light these up and run little light bulbs or LEDs inside the heads and then wires out the back. We realized, well, wait a minute, how are you going to pull off the head to get the faces on and off? And as you're pulling it off, you're constantly having this wire dangle down, and then as you try to stick it back in, you're trying to find a way to feed the wire back into the box. And thinking about some poor animator doing that 24 times a second, we figured out we have to try something new. So we figured out a way to actually solder wires to magnets, using the magnets to connect the circuit. And the lights would glow, and then when you wanted to pop the head off, you popped it off, replaced the face, and dropped the head back on, and as soon as it made contact with the magnets, the lights would turn back on.
There were several different challenges. Initially, we were going to do a replacement arm sequence, but we realised that we didn't need RP to do that. They still needed to animate, so we actually just chopped our arms down. So we made shorter arms. We did it old school. We ended up making different varieties of box trolls for different shots.
We kept using the overbuilt ones for close-ups, so you could get some breathing and feeling that the box was resting on their shoulders, moving up and down.
With Fish and Shoot, they also had flaps that all needed to open.
Kind of a traditional approach to animation is to have squash and stretch. The boxes get hit by cricket bats and get stamped on, they get treated really badly. We built little stump boxes that could fold in on themselves, and they were built out of little triangles, almost like those kind of little origami paper toys that children make. And they have a little winder inside, so they could squash and stretch the box. In just 3 or 4 frames would give us enough squash and stretch to pull off the gag. There's a scene where there's a huge press that does or does not destroy all the box trolls. They're all produced in the same way, so we put in our origami paper engineered boxes for the squishing, and you just see it over like 3 frames. It's enough to kind of sell that they all collapse. There's definitely a culture within Leica of pushing ourselves and pushing each other and trying out new things.
They can figure out a way to do everything.
And that was a fun part. It was quite a challenge, but that was a lot of fun.
The challenges are the whole reason we do this.
Whoa. We wanted Allergy Snatcher to be super gross.
Oh, it's absolutely grotesque.
It's got the factor.
Winnie would have loved it. She loves gross things.
Mike Smith, the character designer, did some drawings of Snatcher's face, of what it looked like when it swelled up. And I took those drawings to the recording sessions with Sir Ben Kingsley, and he came up with a way of distorting his face.
The best way I could do it was to reduce the size of my mouth and restrict it, because all the swelling actually restricts the mouth so much that there's hardly any movement.
Wading through wet garbage in the middle of the night, crawling after monsters. I'll make those three-stuffed pigs bow down to me.
We needed to have something unique and that was special to that specific shot. His face has so much swollen weirdness to it that having him say a line of dialogue, you get so much follow-through with his cheeks and his lips.
Supping on the choicest cheeses.
That it really, we learned very early on that there was no way that we could try to recycle these poses.
Stand back, peasants. You don't touch your key.
Often, we'll make a lot of faces for a character, but we'll be able to reuse the brow section from the frown for another emotion later on. So it's actually like a library. But with those Snatcher allergy faces, they were one-offs, and they could probably only be used for 1 or 2 frames each.
So what we decided to do was tackle every single one of Allergy Snatcher's shots as its own unique animation.
One of the unique things that Leica does is they use all 3 forms of traditional animation to create their facial animation sequences. It all starts old school with hand-drawn animation.
Good talk. Now it's tasting time.
Almost all of his close-ups were animated beforehand with traditional drawing techniques. It's basically a schematic or a map for the people to model the faces off of. So the Maya animators and sculptors will take my drawings and realize them in 3 dimensions.
And that's where we begin to really figure out how the faces are really going to move on the actual puppet.
Holding my hand with sophistication and savoir-faire.
What I'm doing is creating the poses that are used on the faces of the puppets that will eventually get printed out and used on stage. Most of it involves taking the puppet in the computer and then manipulating controls until we get an expression that we like.
And then that is used as the guides to printing them out on their rapid prototype 3D printers.
The allergy faces are very huge and you can only fit so many of them on the printer.
Most characters' faces you can print about 150 in an hour, but Snatcher, being so much more complex, was only able to print 12 faces an hour, so it was a much slower process.
See? You're not like them.
There are a lot of moving parts in this face outside of what we normally move, you know, the brows, sometimes a little bit of the nose, the mouth and cheeks and things. There's a lot of secondary motion that goes into this. This giant bulge here has to kind of wobble when he talks, and the lip here has to flap around too, and there's this giant swollen tongue and these crazy glossy sweat beads because he's very nervous at this point too, and so all of this is just moving around as he's talking.
In the end, you know, it looks hopefully like a real swollen allergy face of a man.
When Snatcher's fully swollen up, he's really only got one eye to work with in terms of emoting, and his mouth is so contorted. It was a real challenge, I think, for the animators to make sure the acting performance really came through the way it needed to. For the allergy Snatcher faces, those things were like little heirloom tomatoes.
Yeah, they looked like
so
a tray
big.
of really distorted heirloom tomatoes.
Yeah, and they were really heavy. I mean, those things are all magnetized to stay on the faces, but I'm sure that we were pushing the ability of those magnets to hold that face onto the puppet.
I think it looks great on camera, but let me tell you what, it was a lot of work.
It's the most complex facial animation issues they've had to deal with here.
We dance.
Well, what?
Like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Our composer gave a brilliant waltz for us to use as a backbone of the tempo for this, and the music really inspired and supported the dance.
I knew they were just about to start the animation of that section, so I just sent them a piano version of a waltz. And the thing that I wanted to try was to catch a couple of things. The various reversals of fortune within the waltz, where Snatcher seems to get the upper hand and then Eggs manages to get away from him. And then there's a lovely moment when Eggs finds himself dancing with Winnie, and there's a mini romance there.
The beautiful sequence of the ballroom, that was the most intimidating.
I didn't realize at all how difficult it was to do in stop motion.
No! No! The thing that's terrifying for both animators and puppet makers, either floating hair or floating fabric.
How can we do this? How can we execute on this incredible idea?
As a producer, when you look at a script that has a giant ballroom scene with a waltz, typically the response is to say, we're not going to do that. But, of course, that is not our response.
To the credit of everyone involved, you throw these impossible challenges at people and they just kind of sink back and shake their heads and groan, and then they come up with some brilliant way to solve that problem.
To start with, we wanted to see real reference.
We wanted to get the waltz right, and one way to do that is to hire some choreographers. And we had a whole dance troupe here, just dancing and being filmed.
Tony and I found ourselves at a dance studio in Portland, trying to sort of direct and help along a whole choreographed sequence of all these professional dancers, which was pretty amazing and terrifying.
So we were able to work with them to create a dance that was a jigsaw puzzle of activity. Eggs is trying to get across the dance floor, and he can't. He's blocked by all these very specific dance moves that our choreographers conceived.
So we had great reference for the dance.
They made these incredible, beautiful, flowing outfits.
They have to sort of do all these mathematical equations to work out exactly how the dresses would flow.
What he said is true.
We recreated essentially a hooped skirt, a Victorian hooped skirt, but in metal with joints.
It looks so soft, but it's actually really bendy. That's all hand done. They make it ripple. It looks so good.
So the dresses have got huge undulations in them that give the impression of a huge weighted draped fabric with lots of layers underneath.
So the rings of the hoop skirts were attached to 3 legs that had joints in them.
This is what sits underneath the dancing ladies, and it's controlled. They have a little tail, a little winder here, so they can produce this up and down movement.
So they have like a very slight bounce to give the impression that those dancers are swaying around and moving.
It's a whole room of people dancing. So, you know, the hero characters are all stop motion, and all the peripheral characters, secondary characters are all CG.
So I think we made 4 hero female dance puppets, and then they filled in the gaps based off our puppets.
We've got about 50 or 60 CG dancers in there.
They do their builds very, very differently from us, but they do need to look the same.
And then it was up to the animator.
Every time, you know, someone moves, everyone has to move too, and they have to twirl them around.
They're trying to make it look natural, but dancing also isn't a very natural movement. It's all very uniform and it's a pattern. So they've got to kind of make a pattern look natural, and then Eggs has got to try and be doing a pattern, but naturally incorrectly. So they've got all these challenges.
This really incredible, sumptuous environment of this kind of ostentatious, aristocratic world.
It's pretty mind-blowing. I've never seen anything like that in stop motion.
But I think when people see the final project, none of that effort, you don't feel any of that effort. It just feels like a beautiful, magical moment, and that's what it's all about.
That's it, Eggs! You're dancing!
How's that for an entrance?
How big is the mech drill?
It's massive.
It's a beast.
Doomsday machine. A steampunk dream of machinery. The Mecha Drill is easily the biggest puppet that we've ever built here. Maybe the biggest stop motion puppet ever made.
And we really wanted it to have a sense of precariousness to it, that it was this barely held together bunch of machinery. It was like a walking factory that could explode at any point. And trying to figure out how we were going to make this thing move and have a sense of scale and real weight to it.
I think when we started out, we said, well, let's get together and make the bones. Because we knew, in essence, that whatever was at the center of it all had to not only hold up the model making, but it had to connect to the rigging.
This will give you kind of an idea of the scale of what we're working with. This is the Mecha Drill's arm. We had to produce rigs that would hold such a colossal monster, so our rigs were 20 by 20 by 20 feet.
It's exactly as I expected.
So it could walk around and destroy things, wreck stuff, and be villainous. We wouldn't be able to use conventional puppet making techniques that we use for the puppets that are this big.
Don't forget, homicide 6.5.
And what's used for those are friction. You know, you tighten something up and then the animator can kind of subtly move it and it can move to the next position using a kind of a friction joint, a ball and socket joint. When something's really big and really potentially heavier, if you use friction, the animator simply won't be strong enough to do it, or it might cause havoc in some other way. Some of the movements we've made into a gear movement.
Using kind of worm screws so they could dial in very precisely.
The cool thing about the Mecha Drill is the fact that everything on it works.
It's just chock full of moving parts, cogs and pistons.
The geek of me sort of sees the little gears, which are not circular, and that the teeth are different sizes and shapes, so they're very irregular gears, but they're meshing together and working.
Last I counted was about 600 pieces, and that's every little piece.
The basic movement has to be controlled by these computerized knobs and servos, but all throughout the drill, the legs, the arms, the different little mechanisms within it, those are all animated by hand. And so it's a combination of technology and human hands, and all combining together as human ingenuity.
Get your grimy paws off my machine!
Once they figure out what it needs to do and how to do it, then we'll go ahead and dress it and hide all their hard work.
There is, within the Mecha Drill, a three-dimensional fire performing.
We're trying to change cheesecloth into fire. Once you had it behind the pane of glass, the glass would move it and it would just move these really beautiful lines with the cheesecloth.
And then putting that in an iPad mini inside the mecha drill, we were able to make it look like this furnace.
Obviously, we cannot change the size of the iPad. We had to build the furnace to fit the mecha and around the iPad as best as we could without really trying to change the design of it.
You know, it's one thing to build it so it looks good, but it's another to build it so it actually works.
It was a tango. It was definitely, you know, obviously the most important thing was for the animators to do what they had to do with the mecha.
They wanted it to perform mechanically. That it shouldn't perform like an animal or a humanoid figure. Mostly we were afraid that they were going to break our precious baby. You know, that was the thing. It's going to go into the animators' hands and they were going to break it.
Stop destroying my indestructible machine!
There was very little of that. Well, okay. Raul does carry a bottle of super glue, I've noticed, on a daily basis, but really we've been fortunate enough. There haven't been any major, you know.
They've survived. They've all survived.
Making a puppet that large and still being able to get a decent performance out of it that makes it feel alive, I think that that's pretty incredible.
Oh, I'm extremely excited and happy with the outcome of the mecha. I feel like we worked on the star of the movie.
It's so cool.
If they made a toy of that, I would be straight there.
There's nothing that exists before we start on one of these films. Every single thing that you see has got to be designed and built by hand.
What?
You don't get anything for free in stop motion. We've really got to plan out every single element.
And that goes as far as the fire and the smoke and water and all the natural elements that you'll see on screen.
Tell me everything!
As an art director, it's awesome. I mean, how often do you get to create everything? I mean, that's an incredible sense of power.
One of the things that's incredibly difficult to do in a stop-motion film is bring the environments to life in a believable way. And it's something that was very important for us in this film to have that level of atmosphere.
We talk about what's water gonna look like? What's the destruction? What's dust gonna look like? What are the materials that we would use to create these images? And that's where we start.
You can't change nature.
We created this entire sewer system with flowing water and dripping water out of just plastic and glass.
What we have behind me is a sheet of glass that has ripples in it, and it's made from shower glass. And that's passing from left to right, and that's giving us our flow. And then what we've done is we've created a little nest of mirrors and wires and bits of blue masking tape. And so what we're seeing is we're seeing the effect of the rippled glass passing over those wires and mirrors. And that's given us the illusion of the highlights above ground.
How curious, how peculiar.
The 24, 25 different kinds of weeds that we have growing in Cheesebridge are all specific weeds, but yet they're sort of stylized in a way that puts them into our world, which I think is the important thing.
A new species, never seen before.
For the fire, we did a lot of early tests on with using cheesecloth. Our rigging department did this amazing series of flames and this amazing fire out of just using suspended upside down cheesecloth hit with kind of this orangish yellowish light. And it looked incredible.
The attraction to making like natural elements is partially the challenge of taking on nature. You just become more appreciative of like the things you take for granted by delving so much deeper into the subject matter.
It's the little moments.
And when you've got it, you just feel like you're kind of neck and neck with nature. There's quite an empowering feeling about it, trying to emulate nature.
What's he saying?
we knew we wanted to develop a completely new language for the box trolls. They're able to communicate with each other, they're able to communicate with Eggs, our hero, but basically nobody else can understand what they're saying.
Early on, we tried a lot of different voices for the box trolls. We came up with languages for them and stuff, and it never seemed to click until we went out to Dee Baker and Steve Bloom.
That was really the only way we could approach it, is they're the experts, they do this the kind of stuff, they're geniuses.
Well, originally as we were trying to configure the box troll language, it would come out as sounding a little more Slavic. Like that. It's like add little skis and skas at the end.
That didn't seem right. You know, you wanted to find this place. They wanted them to feel more alien, more different, more other.
Let's do a little less language. Let's make it more just kind of animal sounds with like a little word put here and there, and we'll use those to build it into this little structure.
It's gurgly, it's very expressive, a lot of music to it.
I think we're all saying the same thing here.
I don't think we are.
It was pretty challenging, like, for Dee and Steve to go through all the iterations that we put them through. We landed in a spot where we really felt great about, you never can quite understand what the box trolls are talking about, but you certainly get the emotional intent of it all. They were just amazing how they would kind of take what was on the script page and then nuance and roll with things. And I mean, they introduced a lot of ideas and a lot of back and forth in their conversations.
Collaboration is what it's all about.
Working with Dee, it stretches me anyway vocally, because he goes to crazy places with his throat.
See, we couldn't do that if there were only one of us.
No.
For me, one of the overriding factors in every film we've made has been fear. It's like, can we do this? Or can we even, attempt any of these things? It's because they've never been done.
Are you sure about this, boss?
And we find ourselves in situations where every day we've got to figure out how to make it work, how to paint ourselves out of that corner.
The Leica way is the hardest way. Yeah.
Allergy Snatcher was definitely one of the most challenging characters to tackle.
His problem is he has a lactose intolerance that causes his face to swell up to mammoth proportions.
Marvelous. Then let us begin.
There were hundreds and maybe thousands of drawings done before a single thing was modeled.
But I mean, they were physically impossible. So it's like how to take the essence of that drawing, because we are working in the physical world with a puppet, and get something funny. That was really challenging.
He goes through many stages of this allergy.
Someone's got the cheese fits again.
First, it's sort of a little slug of something that crawls across his face, and then it's his lip.
Whoa.
Both trying to meet the design of that face in the computer, and also having it feel kind of gross and fleshy and stuff.
It was one of the most elaborate things that the facial department has ever had to print.
Isn't this nice?
They were so big that we were only able to print 12 faces in 12 hours. And what that meant is that it would have taken 6 months straight of just processing time to get all of the faces ready for Allergy Snatcher. And he's only in for 2 or 3 minutes of film.
Those things, etc., big words, chummy banter.
Stop motion undoubtedly is the worst possible way to make a film. It's torturous, it's painful. You're contorting your body in all manner of different positions. You're going home with backaches and your legs are sore.
Yep, nothing terrifying about that.
I think we're definitely up for the challenge of anything. Yeah, we're not afraid.
We are, I think, masochists on some level. But we're able to create this incredible world that couldn't have even been imagined a handful of years ago.
If we have to do the hard thing, it's okay. It's a challenge, and we love the challenge. We've got so many brilliant people here that can figure things out.
This is where I belong.
For all the terrifying moments we had and all the problems we had to solve, cannot wait to show it off to the world.
I'm all right. Just give me a hand.
Let's dance. Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Let's dance to the song they're playing on the radio. Let's sway while color lights up your face. Let's sway, sway through the crowd to an empty space. And if you say run,
Stop! Don't scratch there in public.
and if you say hide, we'll hide. Because my love for you
Dance. We'll walk like this.
my heart in two. You should fall
That's it, eh?
into my
I'm
arms.
dancing.
My turn, madam. Let's dance. Let's dance.
Ha! Hey-ya!
Watch your hands, monsieur.
The mecha drill is a kind of fire-breathing,
Massive.
Giant, stomping steampunk machine that spouts flames and smoke from every possible hole.
Methinks a deed of this magnitude deserves something a bit more significant.
The mecha drill is a puppet, it's a prop, it's a set, it's massive. It's almost as big as I am.
I can't, right? It's not possible.
It's unlike anything else that we've ever had to approach. It's so cool.
It's just chock full of moving parts, cogs and pistons and things that are all moving.
The mecha drill is by far the biggest challenge that we've had at Leica in terms of really taking it to the next level, where we're incorporating all the things that we've learned.
It was a fabulous collaboration between the rigging department and the model builders and the paint department and art direction. It was just really exciting to see everything come together.
The basic movement of the mecha drill has to be controlled by these computerized knobs and servos that actually support the weight and push the contraption forward. The animator's still manipulating the thing on a frame-by-frame basis. It's just a big, massive thing.
You think back to King Kong, who was only 18 inches, and yet it seemed gigantic for us. Making a puppet that large and still being able to get a decent performance out of it that makes it feel alive, I think that that's pretty incredible.
The monsters have been vanquished.
You know, as a studio, we're very careful to respect the past of what stop motion is and where it comes from, but constantly finding ways to bring it forward and to keep evolving its place in cinema.
We made great strides with the mecha drill. You know, he has a gait of 3 feet, and I hope that we can do the same thing metaphorically with Leica.
How's that for an entrance?
Dramatical!
Don't you mean dramatic? Box rolls? Ah! Get out of the trash, you
let it go.
Quick, turn around. Come on, move it. Over there. After him.
Very nice.
Gotcha!
Nice little monsters. What have you got in the box? Give it to me. Come on, give it to me. All I want is the lens. You can eat the baby if you want to. Give it to me! That's right. Catch it! Follow them, you dumb dairy bugs! Don't come back without that lens!
There they go. Crabs go. Pickles left. Me up the middle. Come on, move it.
At least I don't think I did. Shh, shh. No, it wasn't one of mine. Shh. That was close. It was a little bit lower pitched than that. Ow!
Very nice.
Spread out and keep looking.
The world, Mr. Trout, is run by men on horses.
Oh, I know, boss. Such a shame you have a debilitating fear of them.
It's the flaring nostrils and those teeth.
Hey, Framley, darling?
Equinophobia, I think they call it.
Say the words.
Gore? That's it, Gonzola? Did you hear that? He said it!
It's like you're both having a conversation about cheese.
I do hope you have good news for me, Mr. Gristle.
Well, you see, it's a funny story. Maybe funny isn't the right word.
Disappointing might be better.
I deployed the men with geometrical logic. Crabs on the right, pickles on the left. We had them surrounded, and then...
We lost them.
No! They disappeared!
Are you upset? You look upset. Don't you look upset, Gristle?
Upset? Me? Hold it together, Snatcher. The key to great leadership is good communication. Hats, please. Am I happy about this setback? No! 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 Not really. So, looks like it's all down to you, Mr. Genius Inventor. Tell me there's another lens.
It was one of a kind.
Wrong answer!
Impossible to reproduce!
Focus, Herbert.
Please let me go. I have to find my son.
You threw him away, remember? Bad parenting, Herbert Trapshaw.
It was a mistake. A terrible mistake.
Boo-hoo.
Snatcher, please. I'm all he has.
Had, Herbert. Mr. Krabs, please show our guest to his room. Very nice.
Snatcher! You can't do this! I need to find my son!
Start construction.
What's the point, boss? Them monsters have got the lens.
Then we'll just have to catch every box troll in this town until we get that lens back. How long can it take?
I knew it! Get the boss.
Very nice.
How's my darling boy? Look what Dad has made for you.
There you go. Are you ready to fly and see the world, my little inventor? Launch! That's right. I'll always catch you. Dada has work to finish now.
Wait, don't go.
Won't be long. We'll play again soon. Dad's so very busy. We'll play soon. I promise.
Nutty, sharp. Cows graze on the lower slopes, I'd say.
Quite so, my lord, from my own heifer.
And it was from a morning milking. Pulled from the cow at about 5 a.m.
Late afternoon, actually.
The hint of dawn dandelion says early morning to me.
I must have remembered incorrectly.
Well, it's quite all right. Yes, front left teat, if I'm not mistaken.
Ugh, what snobs. And it's obviously from the right teat. Father!
Not now, Winnie.
But Father, look! That boy's eating glop.
Save her. Don't speak.
You there! Do you have money to pay for that cheese?
That depends.
On what?
On what money is?
You are stealing.
Not stealing, gathering.
Ew!
Hey!
One does not eat from the trash.
Why not? All the best things come from the trash.
That's the most preposterous nonsense ever spoken.
Are you telling me someone doesn't want this?
Are you with the Royal Navy, young man?
Yes! Doesn't he look nice?
Ooh, Winifred, does your sailor friend have a name?
Oh, I'm Eggs.
Bert! Eggsbert is a normal name that he has.
Lovely. Dear, Winnie has a friend.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Cheshire, do give my wife a joggle.
Father, I have a question about cheese.
Cheese? Did someone mention cheese? Ah, hello, Winifred.
Eggsbert is very interested in the guild hats. I explained the colours of the different leagues of gentlemen, but I wasn't sure what the red hats were.
The red hats are not gentlemen. They are lowly men who deal with lowly pests.
But didn't you tell Mr. Snatcher he might get a white hat?
If he can rid this town of box trolls, even I must admit he'll have earned it. Though men of his ilk often lie to get ahead. So we must be certain.
Lord Winnie's dad? Where would a man
Of his ilk.
live?
I believe he's in that rundown factory out on Curd's Way.
Oh, are we still here? Do pass the tea. Oh.
Leave her. This way she'll be early for supper.
Oh, Eggs, you were so good in there.
It felt good, like I was one of you.
Maybe once this is all over, you could live up here like a proper boy.
Me? A proper boy? But that's not important now. We still need to save my friends. Okay, how do we find Curd's Way?
Milk turns into it.